landed.
What makes an astronaut? The term astronaut comes from a combination of two Latin words, meaning sailor of the stars. Like sailors of the open seas, astronauts require specific skills that develop over years of training. However, unlike sailors, astronauts are hard to come by. In 1962, there were 3.15 billion people on the planet, and NASA selected less than 20 people to become astronauts in the Mercury and Gemini programs. That means if you were a NASA astronaut in 1962, you were one in 157,500,000. So what differentiated the people that NASA chose from the rest of the population? In the words of author Tom Wolfe, these original astronauts had to possess the right stuff. Astronauts had to be cool under pressure, unfazed by imminent peril, and adept at rapid problem solving, all in a hostile environment. But how do you teach that? One popular example is the centrifuge, a machine that simulates G-forces. Astronaut Michael Collins reported that while testing spacesuits in the centrifuge, he often lost the ability to breathe and almost blacked out. In 1966, during the Gemini 8 mission, Neil Armstrong put his training to use as he fought forces many times the weight of gravity to regain control of his tumbling flight module, saving him and his co-pilots' lives, all in a day's work. It goes without saying that astronauts are indeed cut from a different cloth, yet there is still much that the rest of us can learn from them. Most importantly, the story of the NASA astronaut teaches us that great people are not simply born great. Instead, they choose to live greatly. They have a dream and go after it wholeheartedly, doing whatever it takes to earn the opportunity to make it a reality. This same duality is now extended to us as we set out upon life's open seas. The dreams in our hearts are only as out of reach as we allow them to be. And if we keep our eyes on our Creator, He can turn our normal stuff into the right stuff as we submit to His plan, will, and process.
Good morning again. First of all, I know I sound a little strange. Sorry. I promise. Thank you guys for praying for me. I know a lot of you were asking. Last week, Mark had to preach for me because I couldn't talk at all last week. So, but I feel great. Thank you guys. A lot of you have asked and things. So thank you very much. I sound really weird, but I feel great. So I wanted to say, first of all, I know it's kind of weird that we're a little bit smaller today, but every morning when we come in here for prayer, one of the things that I always pray about, we knew with the Toyota shutdown, we knew people are on vacation this week. I mean, our entire staff is going to be gone this whole week. When I pray, I always pray that the people that need to hear the message that God has given us for today are here today. So hopefully when we're speaking and we're usually, it's not like we're really formal anyway, but we can be even more informal today. But I really hope that what God has given me today is really going to touch you and is for you, that you are here specifically for it. I did want to say a couple of things that I think are awesome. One of the things that we really like to do here at the Well is to celebrate things that are happening. So a couple weeks ago, if you were here, we had Bryce Mosby from the Dream Center that came. And he came and talked to us about mentoring kids who were just from Jacobsville, from kind of more of a poverty side of town, some marginalized children. And he was so impressed that day. He said that in our church, he had more response and more people kind of stay and talk to him afterwards than he had in any church that he had been to before. And as of right now, we already have 6 people that are becoming mentors, and there are other people that he's meeting with and things. So I just want to thank you guys for that, because for us, one of the biggest things about our church is that we want to get outside these walls. This is just a place that we come on Sundays to learn more, to see each other, to kind of pump each other up. But the real work happens outside these walls. So thank you guys. And if that's something that is on your heart, or if you didn't get to hear him, it's on our YouTube channel. But if that's something that's on your heart, there is a waiting list of kids that are waiting for mentors. So if you don't have his information, it's on our website, but it's also, you can get that with me. One more thing, that not only going outside the church, but we do have a great space here. We have our daycare that is here all week, but we want to also make sure and open this up for other people, other groups that need a space to meet. So starting not this Thursday, but next Thursday, the 25th, we are actually going to be having a 12-step group that is going to start meeting here on Thursday evenings. And it is a female-only 12-step group for women that are getting out of codependent relationships. So one, if that is something you personally would like to attend, that is for you. But also, I think it's going to be great. I'm going to send out some things, just some ways to love on them with some different snacks and things while they're here. So I just think that that's awesome that we are able to do that as a church, to not only work outside our walls, but also invite people in to help, because that's what Jesus is all about, is loving all of the people around. So we have been, sorry, I sound like a prepubescent boy. That's what I feel like. So we have been in this series called The Last Supper on the Moon. And I hope that you guys have liked it, because I have really enjoyed, like I said when we started, I was kind of a space nerd growing up, but as I got older, I kind of got away from some of that. So for me, it's been really fun to kind of dig into this, research some of the things, and see some different things that happened and how those are connected to the book of John. We've been looking at 7 miracles in the book of John and how they're connected to that landing on the moon. We're looking at this to get a glimpse. Remember when John wrote his gospel, the reason that he wrote his gospel was to show us who Jesus was, the character of Jesus. So the miracles that we are looking at helping us see who he is. Now, we're trying to bridge that gap. I think sometimes when we think about who we want to be, or the joy that we want to have, or the closeness that we want to have with God, it seems like it's just, as far away as the moon, just way, way out there. And so through this series, we're kind of looking at how do we get there? Because if God wants us to live a life of fullness, we have to be able to get there. He's not going to keep it away from us. So we're looking at these miracles and that power, just like it took a rocket for our astronauts to get up to the moon. We can use that power of the Holy Spirit to get there, to bridge that gap. Now, last week, Pastor Mark talked about the feeding of the 5,000, which is kind of one of those just really popular miracles that a lot of us have heard about. And thank you for doing that. He did a great job when I wasn't able to talk at all. So we're going to look at kind of just a little bit about what he talked about. We're going to start in John chapter 6 and look back at verses 1 and 2. And it reads, "Sometime after this, Jesus crossed the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick." So that's what we read last week. So Jesus was popular. He had been doing all of these things. He had gotten away. We found out that he had gotten away because he just heard his cousin and best friend had died, had been killed. And so he was trying to get away, but all these people followed him. He fed them. They just loved him. And they started to see that he was the fulfillment from the Old Testament of the Messiah. So they were just like, let's make him the king. He's amazing. We love him. Think about that, just like crowds around him. And so today, we're going to look at what happened right after that, right after the feeding of the 5,000. So we're still in John chapter 6, and we're going to look at verses 15. Jesus, knowing that they intended, and by they he means that crowd that he had just fed, they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. Now when evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into the boat, and went over the sea toward Capernaum. And it was already dark, and Jesus had not come to them. Then the sea arose because a great wind was blowing. So when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and drawing near the boat, and they were very afraid. But he said to them, "It is I, do not be afraid." They willingly received him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land where they were going. So Jesus had fed the 5,000. All these people were coming after him to forcibly make him the king. Now, we looked at these astronauts. Now, when the astronauts were in training to go to the moon, and really on any of their missions, there was always this tension between the astronauts who, were adventurers ready to go, and the doctors. Because the doctors wanted to make sure that they were going to be okay when they were on this adventure. So at first, the doctors said, if a man flies on a rocket, if he takes off, it's going to kill him. He just can't, man's body can't take off like that. It's going to kill him. So they did all these simulations and things, and they realized, no, a man's body can do that. They'll be okay. Next, the doctor said, if you feel weightlessness, if gravity leaves your body for more than a few seconds, it's going to cause you to be unable to swallow. It's going to make your heart and your lungs all confused. So you're going to basically explode because nothing's going to be able to work correctly. So what they did is they put astronauts in planes, and they would shoot them up really fast and then drop them really fast, and then shoot them up really fast and drop them down really fast. They actually called it vomit comets, which sounds so exciting. But they would, because of that, they would have that time of weightlessness, right, as they were dropping. And they realized, no, they can swallow, their heart, lungs, everything is fine. There was Michael Collins, who, remember, we talked about him on the backside of the moon. He was in Apollo 11. He's quoted as saying, living and working with these doctors was like having an aunt who lives in a haunted house, or a close friend who sincerely believes in astrology and can't stop talking about it, especially delighting in reading you your own horoscope on bad days. None of it is to be believed, but it's pretty difficult to ignore. So they thought, they didn't really believe the doctors, but they were like, what if we do explode? It's kind of weird. So they talked about, as they were going into space, they talked about all of these things that could happen, all of these bad things, the worst case scenarios. But what they never talked about with the astronauts is, what if it worked? What if they made it to the moon? What if they were able to do the job? What if they were able to walk? What would it be like when they came back? Because when they came back, we saw millions of people heard the first, heard his words, saw it, they were watching on TV. They were famous when they came back. And because they had no training for what it was like when they came back, there were divorces, there were people in drug and alcohol addiction because of this. Just think about, the time of Elvis and the time of the Beatles and Taylor Swift now. They were more popular than that. They had been in space and on the moon, and they came back without any training with what to do when things are going well. So today, it's going to be a little different today, but we're going to talk about the bittersweet truth of being famous, because that's kind of what Jesus had to face at times. The first thing we're going to look at is the complexity of success. Now, when I first start talking, like I said, we're going to be a little more informal. You're going to tune out, and you're going to say, this is not me. This is not what I think. But just stay with me. Hold on. Okay, because if you are a follower of Jesus, if you truly love him, if you are truly following what he wants you to do, you will be famous. And that sounds weird to us, but that's because our idea of famous is the Beatles, Taylor Swift. But all famous really means is people are going to know about you. People are going to hear about you. People are going to want to be with you. And think about that. If you are honoring God with everything that you have, if you are living out those fruits of the Spirit, if you are being joyful to people, if you are loving people, if you are being kind and compassionate to them, if in your business you are serving people with integrity, you are apologizing when you are wrong, you are doing all of those things that the Holy Spirit moves us to do, people are going to want to be around you. Because we are supposed to be the light into this world. So I can say, if you say that you are following God and nobody wants to be around you, you're not shining your light, people are going away from you, then maybe you need to think about if you're really following God or not. Because if you have these qualities, you're going to attract people. And I don't mean you're going to have, like 1 million Instagram followers. I just mean you're going to have a group that is like, there is something about her. There is something about him that makes me feel different than other people. And I want that. I want to be with them. Proverbs 22:29 reads, "Do you see a man who excels in his work? He will stand out before kings. He will not stand before unknown men." So an example of this is King Saul. He was the first king of Israel. And he had mood swings. He was kind of a mess. But he would have these mood swings and things would happen. And so the only thing sometimes that would calm him down would be music. So one day he was sitting in his palace and he was like, I need someone to come and play the harp for me. I need someone to come to calm me down, to sing to me, play and calm me down. And all of the people around him said, hey, we've heard of this guy named David. He's a shepherd, but he is so close to God. We have heard that he practices. We have heard that he pours his heart out to God in the poems and the songs that he writes. Why don't we get him to come and sing for you? And if you're not aware, later, David was anointed king. And that is just because David had a heart for God. Because people knew about him because of the way in which he played, the way in which he followed God. So people knew about him and brought him before the king. No matter what your occupation is, I'm obviously a pastor. Some of you are teachers. Everybody from Toyota is gone today, but some of you, work in factories. Some of you work in offices. Some of you are moms or dads that are home with your kids. It does not matter what your occupation is. If you do what God has called you to do in the way that God has called you to do it, there will be honor and integrity in it, and it will grow. Proverbs 11:24 reads, "The world of the generous gets larger and larger, but the world of the stingy get smaller and smaller. When we honor God, we want to do more with what we have. Daniel is a really great example of this also. Daniel is a man in the Old Testament that was brought back. The Israelites were in captivity, and he was an Israelite, and the king of Babylon looked on him, and he had integrity. He still prayed to God. He did not eat the things he was not supposed to eat. He still followed everything that he was supposed to do. And because of that, a king who did not follow God, who was actually kind of opposed to our God, still lifted him up and made him almost second in command and gave him power because of his integrity. Matthew 5:16 says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." People are going to celebrate you and come to you because you are different. I want you to hear that. We want to be different. We want our light to shine so brightly that people see that and are attracted to that. One more, Philippians 2:15 reads, "That you may become blameless and harmless, children of God without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in this world." And we can think about, this was written a long time ago, but right now, just think about our world over the last 24 hours. This is a perverse generation. There are things that are going on, no matter what side, what you think, there are perverse and cruel things going on in this world. So as followers of God, we are called higher than that. We are called to shine his light above that to others. Now, when we do that, we will be blessed. We will, our businesses, our families, our lives. But I don't want you to hear, some places, they talk about what's called the prosperity gospel. And what that means is basically it's almost a formula. If you follow God, you're going to win the lottery. Basically, you're going to get all of those things. Don't hear me saying that today. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you won't have hardship in your life. I'm not saying, you're going to have a hard time paying your electric bill once in a while. That is not, please don't hear that. What I am saying is if you follow God and you follow what you know he wants from you, then he will always be with you and people will want to be with you, and that will be the blessing, not necessarily monetary blessings, things. Now, and that's the sweet side, is that if we follow that we will have this comfort, we will have these people, we will have this blessing, we will be able to shine our light. But there's also a bitter side that can come with that. Sometimes when our businesses are going great, or our family's doing great, or our church is doing great, we can start to think, oh, I'm the blessing. It's not really coming from God. It's because I'm so awesome. I can't really even talk today, but I'm a great speaker. Or all of these things, we can think that it is us. I heard a quote that I love this. I want to use this all the time. It says, "It's easy to be born on third base and believe you hit a triple." Think about that. It's easy to be born on third base thinking that you hit a triple. And I think that quote is good for so much kind of privilege, but talking about us today with God is that sometimes when things are going so great, we forget how we got there. We forgot the reason that we are having these blessings. We forgot people aren't coming to me because of me. They're coming to me because of the reflection I have of the Son of God, not anything about me. So Jesus knew, going back to our miracle here, Jesus knew this was going to be hard for the disciples. Because remember, the disciples are mostly just teenage boys. So they have been, they've been struggling with Jesus. They've heard people talk bad about Jesus. They've run away from these people that were trying to do bad things, eventually trying to kill Jesus. But now they're like, we have got it. All these people, they want to make you the king. They love you. There's crowds over us. This is the goal, Jesus. Like, let's party. This is amazing. And so that's how they are feeling, like, we have made it. This is where we should be. And Jesus immediately looks at them and is like, no, we got to skirt out of here. We got to get away from these people. This is not where we should be right now. And Jesus says, right now, go and get in that boat. He tells all the disciples, forget about these people, go and get in the boat. Now, when they go and get in the boat, because this is all in one night. So it doesn't say this, so I am adding some. But we can think that because of the time period and a storm is coming, that they can probably see some clouds in the sky. Maybe the water is, a little bit rough. But they're thinking, we got all these people who want to make you king. This amazing, party, this amazing time going on here. And you want us to get in this boat, in this rough water, when there are clouds that look like there might be a storm coming. I don't know about you, but this seems like an easy decision to me. I want to stay here and party and, have people crowd surf me and just let me not get into this boat. But a quote from Herbert Lockyer reads, Jesus knew there was more danger in the favor of the crowd than there was in the fury of the storm. Think about that. That favor of the crowd was more dangerous than that storm that was happening. Sometimes we are so concerned about the waves of trial that can come in our life. Oh, what if this happens? Or this is happening in my relationship. This is happening in my job. This is happening. We're so concerned about all of those things that could go wrong. Just like our astronauts and the doctors. But we should be more concerned about our attitude when things are going well, when the crowds are around us, when we're getting that praise. Because if you live by that praise, all of that adoration, all of those things that you're doing right, you're going to die by that too. Because that is not real. That is not about us. That is about who we reflect. The bigger that your life gets, the more people that you have influence over, the more people, you'll notice people will start coming to you to ask you for advice or to ask you about how, I see that you're shining this light. How are you doing that? The bigger your life gets, the more time you need to spend on your knees. And I can tell you, just as a pastor, this has been something both Mark and I have talked about a lot. There are a lot of pastors. Mega church pastors are the ones you see, but even this week, friends of ours that have fallen into this, that things are big and amazing, and they start to think all about themselves instead of the true goal of what we are doing. And I want to make sure that we don't do that. Not just me personally, but you guys that I love too, that we are focusing on who we are supposed to be focusing on. Okay, so the second one is the problem with obedience. Now, obedience doesn't seem like it would be a problem. I mean, we want our kids to be obedient to us. We think it's good to be obedient to the Lord. But sometimes there is a problem. Because realize, these disciples are in this boat, in this storm, because God told them to go in that boat. He knew there was a storm coming. He saw that there was what they saw as safety on the land, but he told them, get in this boat. Because we serve a God that is willing to send his children into storms when they need it. Sometimes we have the wrong idea, and we think every storm, every bad thing that happens in our life is from the devil. Oh, we got to pray against that. We got to make sure that, the devil's just coming after me. The devil wasn't coming after them. Jesus sent them into that storm to protect them and build them up from something else. And we think about it, most of these disciples were professional fishermen. So this was a bad storm. If they were scared about this storm, they're people who are, used to being in the water and used to being around things. So it was pretty bad if they were scared. But where is Jesus? Did we read that Jesus got in the boat with them? You can answer. Did we read that Jesus got in the boat with them? No, he wasn't in the boat. Jesus went off to a mountain by himself to get close to his Father and sent them off by themselves in this boat, saying, I will meet you on the other side. I'll be there for you, but you guys are going to do this on your own. He needed to develop them. He had a future thought. Jesus could see what was going to happen. And he knew that these teenage boys who were ready to party with the crowd were not ready for what they were going to have to face, because they were going to become very popular, very famous. Later in Acts 19 and verses 19 and 12, Paul, it says that, so that even handkerchiefs or aprons were brought from his body to the sick, and the diseases left on them, and the evil spirits went out of them. So Paul, who was not a disciple at this time, but the disciples were going to minister to him, that he was going to become so famous, so popular, that even that they could just take a handkerchief and wipe it on him, and he could heal diseases. In Acts 5:15, it says about Peter, who was in the boat, so they brought the sick out to the streets and laid them on the beds and couches, that at least the shadow of Peter passing might fall on some of them. So later, Peter's just going to walk by, and his shadow is going to be able to heal diseases. So Jesus knew, I got to build some strength in these guys, these teenage boys here, because they are going to face what's going to seem amazing, but could take them off of the path to me. So I've got to build them. Looking back at the moon landing, if you've ever watched, any of the liftoffs or anything, there's a road that kind of goes from Cape Canaveral to the actual liftoff spot. And I was reading that they actually had to, before the moon landing, they actually had to take that road and do all kinds of work to it to kind of, I didn't write down all the words that they used, but there were special materials, special things that they had to do to reinforce that road, because there was going to be so much heavy equipment, so many things going across that road to go to the rocket launch, that it needed to be reinforced. And this is what Jesus was doing with these men. He knew in the future they were going to face some heavy things. They were going to face awesomeness, and they were going to face trial. So he needed to help teach them what was the most important and reinforce who they were in him. Before God can do great things through us, he has to do great things in us. And sometimes that means a storm has to come to wake us up and make us understand. The third thing we want to look at is the danger of forgetfulness. Now, I love this part because I feel like this is all of us, but it's for sure me. Because we think about these boys that are on this boat, and they have just seen Jesus feed. We learned last week it was probably 20,000 with the women and the children. But he's just fed all of these people. Okay? He's done this amazing, huge miracle. And they are on this boat. And as soon as it starts rocking, as soon as the waves start coming, they're just like, oh my gosh, Jesus, you left us here. What are we going to do? We're going to die. We're not going to be able to make it, and they're all scared. They forgot what happened a few hours ago. They forgot that Jesus just used these loaves and fishes and fed all of these people. They completely forgot. Now, after feeding the 5,000, we read last week how they went around and picked up baskets of leftover food. So there were 12 baskets of leftover food. And actually that word baskets actually means backpacks, so bags of food. Now, just so happens, there are 12 disciples. So as long as they were, sharing, there is a basket, a backpack of food and provisions for each one of the disciples. So if we can picture this, they are sitting there on this boat after Jesus had done this miracle. He is away on a mountain. The storm's coming. They're freaking out about it while they have all of the things that God just provided for them in between their legs, right there at their feet, their bag, their basket, whatever it is, full of their food, sitting right there. And their eye is on the storms and the waves instead of the things that God has provided for them that are still sitting there at their feet. Mark 6:52 reads, "For they had not understood about the loaves because their heart was hardened." They completely forgot about the provisions God had given them because they were so focused on this storm. The last one we're going to look at is the reality of his presence. He is always with us because he is God. That is part of who he is. He is always here with us. Now, in this, Jesus seemed far away. Those disciples seemed like they were all alone in the middle of this water on this boat, and Jesus was up on this mountain. But where Jesus was, he could see them. He was praying for them. There are so many times in Scripture that it tells us about how Jesus has control over all of creation. He had control over the water. He knew what was going on. This was a test for them because he knew in not too much longer he was going to be gone. Not just gone on top of the mountain, but ascended into heaven. And these boys were going to have to follow and to go on mission without him there. So he was testing them to see, okay, do they remember my provisions? Do they help each other out? Do they trust and call on me when the storm is happening? And in this instance, they failed because they just kept thinking about the storm and kept thinking about what was going on right there instead of all of the things that God had done for them. He was trying to get them ready. And that's what he does with us sometimes. Sometimes when those storms come, it's important for us. There are things that are our own faults, and that are the fault of sin in this world that happen to us. But sometimes God does put us in places and in storms to help us become who he wants us to be. So when we're in those storms, what do? How do we figure out? How do we stay close to him? Matthew 14:22 tells us, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. So when he told the disciples, I want you to get in this boat. This is going to be the best thing for you. We want to get away from these crowds. Sounds weird, I know, but be obedient. Step in this boat. This is what you need to do. And I'm going to be over there on the other side, and I'm going to meet you there. When we're in those storms, what we can do is rest in the fact that God tells us, I'm going to meet you over there. Because God keeps his promises. If he tells us, I'm going to meet you on the other side, he's not going to let us die in the middle. Because that would not be keeping his promise. It might feel like that. We might lose some things in the middle. We might have to kind of tear away at our heart, have a lot of change happen in the middle. But he is going to be there for us because he says he is. And because we believe that, he is going to be there for us on the other side to meet us there. And to help us keep going as we go through those trials, he gives us provisions. So when you're in those trials and you are scared about what is happening, remember he's on the other side. And instead of looking at the storm and all of those waves, look down at your feet and remember the provisions that he has given to you to help you as you are on your way to him. You go ahead and close your eyes for me. God, just thank you so much. Thank you for the people that are here today. Thank you for sending them to us today. Help those that are traveling, those that are on vacation, those that are away. Help keep them safe and with you. But we just want to thank you. We want to thank you so much for trusting us with the storms. We want to thank you that you love us enough to want to build us up, that you love us and trust us enough that you gave us a mission, that we are your people here to shine your light. Help us as we are going through these storms. Help us to look down and remember the provisions that you give to us. Remember the past. Today, right now, if you have a storm that you are going through, we just want to pray for you. We love you guys so much, and we just want to pray for you through the storm that you're going. So if you have something that's going on, if you would just raise your hand, so during this week, we can pray for you. We've got quite a few hands up. God, thank you so much for people who are willing to bring their storms to you and help them see if this is from you, if this is something that they need to bring to you. But we know no matter what storm is going on, that you are here with us and that you have given us the promise that you are going to meet us on the other side no matter what. We love you so much, and thank you just for your grace and for loving us. In your name.